The Texas-Mexico border is seeing record numbers of migrants trying to cross into the U.S. and start a new life. In March, border officials reported more than 221,000 encounters along the southwest land border. That is nearly 28% more than last March. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says he launched Operation Lone Star last year to respond to these big increases in crossings. The project diverts billions of dollars in state taxpayer money toward border protection. Lilia Luciano went to the border and rode along with the Texas Department of Public Safety to gauge the success of the operation. This morning, she's in Mission, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley. Lilia, good morning.
Good morning to you, Nikki. It's good to hear you. Well, we spent the last 2 days touring the border by land, air, and the Rio Grande River to just get a better understanding of exactly how this Operation Lone Star works. It's something that's using $3 billion of Texas taxpayer money to really enforce border laws that are under the jurisdiction of the federal government. So a lot of questions have been surrounding this. A lot of reporting has been questioning whether it's necessary. And critics of Governor Abbott have said that this is just a very expensive political stunt. He says it's necessary to protect the border. Where are you headed?
So now we just, one of the troopers got an alert on a camera that went off. So that's what we're responding to another ranch.
That's Lieutenant Chris Olivares of the Texas Department of Public Safety. His team's mission, Operation Lone Star. It's a state-run, taxpayer-funded operation Governor Greg Abbott launched last March to deter migrants from crossing the border.
For the most part, a lot of them that we've talked to, they're saying they're trying to get to San Antonio or Houston, and they're looking for work. But of course, within those groups, you do have criminals.
Because the federal government and not states have the power to enforce immigration law, state troopers in Lieutenant Olivares' team can only arrest people for trespassing onto certain private ranches they reach across the border. Using choppers, boats,
Mexico is right there.
Yeah, can't miss it.
Drones and cameras on the ground to coordinate locations.
They're headed east. Yeah, they're headed towards us.
These men were handcuffed and charged with trespassing, a misdemeanor.
Being out there, being able to make these apprehensions and also keep the ranchers safe. That's the most important thing.
So it's kind of a security for the ranchers.
Well, not just ranchers too, but also for the entire country, because what we do know that these individuals are not staying in Texas.
Governor Abbott says DPS is meant to protect Texans.
They have apprehended more than 200,000 migrants so far. They've arrested more than 11,000, including cartel members, drug smugglers, and cop killers.
But according to a ProPublica, Texas Tribune, and the Marshall Project investigation, more than 2,000 of those charges stopped being counted because they were unrelated to illegal activity at the border. Meanwhile, Operation Lone Star cost Texas taxpayers about $2.5 million per week. And 10,000 Texas National Guard members have been sent to the border to aid in apprehensions under the program with no end in sight. Still, some private property owners are taking matters into their own hands.
This whole long wall was built by a private property owner. The owner of this land built it up, and on the ends of the wall and the gaps, that's where DPS and the Texas National Guard are surveilling.
The DPS boats, armed with heavy weaponry, patrol the Rio Grande River.
The primary goal, the mission, is to stop the criminal activity from taking place, from entering the state of Texas and making it further into the interior.
That sounds a lot like border enforcement.
Right.
But that's not up to states, that's up to the federal government.
Well, but one thing to understand is that Operation Lone Star is a comprehensive border strategy because the federal government has failed to take any type of action or have a strategy in place to stop some of the criminal activity.
But given the high number of crossings, that deterrent strategy may not be working.
This is your fourth time trying to come in this month. ¿Y por qué sigue viniendo? Why do you keep coming?
Pues porque está difícil en México.
They told us they weren't intending to commit crimes, and all they have left is debt and a broken dream.
Se acabó el sueño. The dream has ended. What was that dream about?
Sacar a la familia adelante.
To help your family.
Hacer un futuro.
To have a future. You know, having done these ride-alongs for years now with Border Patrol, and it's something that I was talking to my crew about, and they had the same experience, we were all struck by the massive number of state troopers that are deployed within just a handful of these counties. the arrest, the trespassing arrest, can only be done within properties where the ranch owners have allowed DPS to go in and do the arrest. If they identify or see through their tech migrants or people crossing elsewhere, or if they encounter, for instance, asylum seekers, they still have to call Border Patrol. So it's kind of a collaboration, but it's not an official coordination with the federal government. So the question is, if they were not there, the troopers, wouldn't Border Patrol be doing what they're doing all along the border? It's a political conversation that's happening all around Texas and all around the country. We know that Governor Abbott is up for re-election. And so some of the critics, as I said before, are saying, is this just kind of politics to justify, or to say that the federal government isn't doing enough? Or is this necessary?
Lily, why is the Texas government devoting millions in taxpayers' money to a program where its jurisdiction really is so limited?
It really is limited. And one of the things that, caught my attention, we were doing that right along on the boat. That's something that has existed before Operation Lone Star, but it is reinforced with the funding of Operation Lone Star. And I said, what happens if you encounter a group of migrants? Well, they don't have the jurisdiction or the power, the Texas state troopers, to arrest them or to process them. So they call Border Patrol. They can still detain people, wait for Border Patrol to show up. I also had the question about what happens to the people who are arrested for trespassing. They told me that there's been a whole processing center that has been set up, and then these people are taken to not jail but prison for the misdemeanor charge. There's a limit of how long they can spend there. So it's kind of holding people before then they can call ICE, and then ICE can process people and, return them or do what they would usually do with border crossers. So a lot of questions are surrounding this. We don't know exactly, there's numbers out there, but we don't know very well where they're drawing the line in terms of what their measures of success are. Because in the past, they have counted crimes that happen and are not connected to the border within the arrests that are made under Operation Lone Star. So there's still a lot of questions. There's a group of members of Congress and also Texas lawmakers that have, demanded a probe into the operation to know that the taxpayer money is, functioning for something that actually helps whatever intentions the Texans have or preferences.
Lilia, what's the atmosphere in Texas been like over the last 2 days? How are Texans reacting to the aggressive measures being enforced through Operation Lone Star?
We know that Texas is politically divided, and a lot of the conversation around this is around whether or not is some kind of, political not scheme, but, if it's politically motivated. In Texas right now, there are militias doing similar things, going out there and taking border enforcement into their own hands. So I really think, it depends on what people support, whether they think that the federal government is doing enough. I asked Lieutenant Olivares, what's the purpose of all of this? And he says, look, we have so many immigrants coming in. The border is so busy that Border Patrol is just busy processing this large and, record-setting number of people. So what we're doing is we're coming in and, keeping our eyes on the ground to basically help. But, it really depends on where people stand.
Lilia, superb, important on-the-ground reporting there in Texas. Thanks so much.